Hello everyone, I'm here today to give y'all a preview of the 2021 Tampa Bay Rays. This is a team that's coming off a heartbreaking World Series loss, but they're still could be fighting for another World Series appearance, and I think they have a chance to go back to the World Series. Call me crazy for that. But before we go into why I think they have a chance, let's talk about the players the Rays have and how good they will be in 2021. The catchers for the Rays last year were not good. Mike Zunino had spent half of the season injured, but whenever he did play, he wasn't that great. Although he did have a couple of home runs in the postseason, but he was still inconsistent. And Michael Perez, he may have had some clutch moments, but just like Zunino, he was inconsistent. And Kevin Smith didn't really play much, but he was still a catcher for the Rays last year, and those were really the only three catchers that played for the Rays last year. And the Rays knew we had to make some changes at the catcher position, so they got rid of Zunino, Michael Perez, and Kevin Smith. But they brought back Zunino and Kevin Smith, which was pretty disappointing. But then the Blake Snell trade happened, and we got Francisco Mejia, a guy who I think is going to be an impact on the Rays this year. I think he won't start to begin the year, but I think he'll get better as the season goes on, and he'll eventually be our starting catcher, and I think he has a lot of potential. This is a guy who has spent many years with different teams, the Indians and Padres, but I'm excited for Mejia. I like his potential. I think he's going to be great for the Rays, and I cannot wait. The infielders for the Rays last year wasn't perfect, great, or spectacular, but it was still pretty solid, and I'm glad we didn't make any changes to the infield. We got shortstop Willie Adames, who I think is a good candidate for a breakout season. He hasn't been the most consistent hitter in his career with the Rays, but I think he had a pretty good spring training this year, and I think he's going to build off of that, and I really think he's going to be really good for us this year, and I cannot wait to see how Willie plays for us. We also got Brandon Lau, who I think is one of the best second basemen in the entire league. He's been a really consistent hitter for the Rays, and I think he's going to improve this year for Tampa Bay, and I'm very excited. I think he has the potential to be an AL MVP candidate. Yes, that's very bold, and most likely won't happen, but I'm going to stick with it. He can be an AL MVP candidate this year, and I think he's going to be that good this year for the Rays. And we also got Yoshi Sasuga, who's coming off his first season in the major leagues after playing the Japanese leagues for a while. And I think he's going to break out this year for the Rays. He's my top breakout candidate for the Rays this year. He's got a lot of power. He can play both first and third. And if Cash doesn't feel comfortable having him play first or third, there's always the designated hitter spot. Cash has talked about letting Yoshi be the leadoff hitter, and I think he's going to do well for the Rays this year. He might start off a bit sluggish, but I think he'll get better as the season comes by, and I really am excited for Yoshi Sasuga in 2021. Then we got Joey Wendle, who had a pretty solid season for the Rays last year. He can play second and third base, and he's pretty good at both positions on the defensive side. I really think his defense is super underrated. He's super good at defense, and he's a solid hitter too. 2020 Joey Wendle was a lot better than 2019 Joey Wendle in terms of hitting, and I think he'll be a solid hitter for the Rays this year. Probably won't be an everyday starter, but whenever he does go on the field for the Rays, he's definitely going to make an impact, and I'm excited for that. And you also got Yandy Diaz, who is most likely going to spend a lot of time at third base, or first base, or maybe even designated hitter. His defense at third isn't terrible, but it's not the greatest, but he's still a really solid hitter. He's got great vision, he's a good contact hitter, and I really am excited for Yandy Diaz this year. He's one of my candidates for a breakout season for the Rays, and I think he's going to be pretty good this year for Tampa. And last but not least, you got Mike Brasso, who is the utility man for the Rays and postseason hero. He can play multiple positions in the infield, and he had a pretty good spring training. He's one of my candidates to break out this year for the Rays, and I really think he's going to be good this year for the Rays. I don't think he's going to be a one-game wonder. I don't think he's going to be as good as Lau, obviously, but I think he will contribute a lot to the Rays this year. And of course, you're all probably wondering, well, how about Ji-Man Choi? Well, he's most likely going to be missing about a month of baseball, but when he does come back on the field for the Rays, he's going to bring great defense at the first base position, and I think he'll be a better hitter this year than he was last year. Last year, they were trying him as a switch hitter, and I think that kind of ruined his funk there, but I think he's going to be a pretty solid hitter for the Rays this year whenever he does play for us, and I'm very excited about Ji-Man Choi. And of course, we got some prospects that's most likely going to be called up this year. Vidal Brujan and, I don't know, this guy named Wander Franco. I don't know if you heard of him. #1 prospect in baseball. I think he's going to be called up this year. Don't know when, but he's definitely going to be called up this year, and I think he's going to be great for the Rays, and I'm very excited for him. He could probably play shortstop or third base. And I'm very excited to see how this infield does for the Rays this year. The outfielders for the Rays last year was better than I expected, and of course, we did lose Hunter Renfroe and Brian O'Grady. Renfroe, I was actually glad to see him gone. He was very inconsistent, but the outfielders this year should still be really good for the Rays. You got Austin Meadows, who I think is going to have a huge bounce-back season this year. He's had a good spring training, and I think he's going to build off that, and I think we're going to see 2019 Austin Meadows come back, and I'm very excited for that. And you also still have Kevin Kiermaier, who is still, to me, the best defensive center fielder in baseball, and his offense wasn't bad in spring training this year, and he actually had a solid World Series, so I'm very excited to see what he does this year for the Rays. And you got this guy named Randy Arozarena, who was a surprise player last year. I expected him to be good, but I did not expect him to have that kind of impact last year for the Rays in the postseason. And he's most likely going to be Rookie of the Year this year. He's got a great chance, and I know he won't be as good as he was in the postseason, but I still think he'll be one of the best outfielders in the league, and I think this will be an amazing season for Randy Arozarena, and I cannot wait. You also got Manuel Margot, who is one of my breakout candidates this year for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he was surprisingly good last year. I had no faith that Manuel Margot was going to be good for the Rays after we traded Emilio Pagan for him, but man, he's turned out to be a surprise. Of course, we all know about that catch in the ALCS last year, and had some good hitting moments. And we all know about he tried to steal home in the World Series, but he's still a pretty good player for the Rays, and I think he's going to break out this year for Tampa, and I'm very excited for Manuel Margot. Of course, we do have Brett Phillips on the IL, and it's not good. He probably wouldn't have started anyways, but he could be a good bench player for the Rays. He'd be a guy that could come in late in the game, maybe as a pinch hitter. He was actually having a good spring training, and I'm excited to see what Brett Phillips does this year. And you also got this prospect named Josh Lowe, who didn't look that great in spring training, but I think he could be pretty good for the Rays still in the future. If we do decide to trade Kevin Kiermaier, I would like to see Josh Lowe come up, and I think he's going to be good for the Rays, and I'm very excited about this outfield this year, regardless of who plays. I think it's going to be a great outfield this year. So the starting rotation this year is definitely interesting for the Rays, because of one reason. We traded Snell and lost Morton. Okay, 2 reasons, but you get the point. That's what everybody's been talking about this year with the Rays. And that's something they've used to discredit how good the Rays will be this year. And it's annoyed me. So, despite losing Snell and Morton, we're still going to have one of the best rotations in the league. And I'm going to tell you the players that are going to make the rotation great. You got Tyler Glasnow, who's adding some new pitches to his arsenal, and I am very excited to see how good he'll be with those new pitches this year. And you also got Ryan Yarborough, who isn't like a strikeout machine, but he's a very good ground ball pitcher. He will get you out through the ground ball, and I really like Ryan Yarborough this year. I think he's going to be really good for the Rays. And you're probably thinking, well, those are only 2 guys from last year's teams. But what if I told you we signed a couple players, and in that Blake Snell trade, we got a good pitcher. We got Rich Hill coming to the Rays. He may be getting old, and there are some concerns, but I think he'll be solid this year for the Rays. And you got Michael Wacha. Yes, I know he did not do good last year, but I think he's going to improve this year. He had a good spring training, and I like what Kyle Snyder has done with Michael Wacha so far. And we also brought back a legend, a Rays legend, Chris Archer. He's coming back after a bad stint with the Pirates, and I think he'll do really well for us this year. I'm excited to see how he'll do. And you're probably thinking, well, those pitchers aren't going to do good for y'all. And if they don't, we still got Shane McClanahan, who had a really good spring training this year. I think whenever he does get called up, he'll probably be starting out in the bullpen, but I think he'll be a great starting pitcher for the Rays this year. I think he will be a starting pitcher at some point, and I like his potential a lot. And we also got Luis Patino, a guy involved in the Blake Snell trade, who has a lot of potential, and he probably won't be starting out on the Rays opening roster right away, and he'll most likely start out in the bullpen if he does get called up, but I do think he could possibly be in the starting rotation this year. You also got Josh Fleming, who was on the Rays starting rotation last year when Yanni Chirinos went down, and he looked pretty good in spring training. I was not happy when he got optioned, but I understood why they did it. He looked pretty good in spring training, and I think he's going to have a great year for the Rays. And you also got Brendan McKay. He probably won't be pitching for the Rays for a while because he's coming off an injury. He's going to return in a month, and he'll start out in the minor leagues. But when he does come up, he's going to be helpful for the Rays this year. This starting rotation is deep. Even if those free agents I told y'all about don't work out, we got these guys. So I'm very excited for the starting rotation this year, and I think it's going to be flat out great for the Rays this year. The Rays bullpen this year is going to look a lot different for the first few months at least, because we traded Jose Alvarado to the Phillies, traded Aaron Slegers to the Angels, and traded John Curtis to the Marlins. We also let Edgar Garcia walk, who signed with the Reds, and we also let Aaron Loup walk, who signed with the Mets. But wait, there's more. Nick Anderson is going to spend a good bit of this season on the IL. Jalen Beeks is still going to be on the IL. And you got Colin Poche on the IL. And Oliver Drake on the IL. And you're probably thinking to yourself, good lord, this bullpen looks a lot worse. But what if I told you this bullpen is still great? This offseason, the Rays made a signing for Colin McHugh, who I think was one of the most underrated signings for the Rays this year. He's a guy who hasn't pitched since 2019 because of an elbow injury, but this year he's coming back and he'll be a bit of a slow start, but I think he's going to be a really good pitcher for the Rays this year. I really like him as a bullpen pitcher. We also brought back Jazz Rowe, Andrew Kittredge, and I know Kittredge was not that great, but he did look good in spring training this year, and Rowe did too. I'm glad those two guys are back. The bullpen still has a lot of great pitchers like Pete Fairbanks, who had a great postseason, Diego Castillo, who I think is one of the most underrated pitchers in the entire league, and you also got other solid guys like Ryan Thompson, Cody Reed, and Ryan Sheriff. I still think this is a great bullpen for the Rays, and I still think this will be one of their strongest group of players. I expect this team to be a really good team this year. I think we're a playoff team. We are a playoff team, whether it be in a wild card or first place in the AL East. I still think we have a good chance to win the AL East. I know a lot of people have the Yankees win the AL East. It's understandable. They're the Yankees. But I still think this team is good enough to give them a challenge. And I think we're better than the Blue Jays. Alright, I'm just going to flat out say it. This could possibly end up biting me in the ass. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care that the Blue Jays signed George Springer, Semien, all those players. Alright? I still like this Rays team a lot better than the Blue Jays. And the Red Sox. I really think we're a great team this year. I know we lost Snell and Morton, but his pitching rotation is still great, bullpen is still great, and not a lot of players from the offense left last year, and a lot of them have a great chance to be really good this year. You got a lot of breakout candidates. You got Austin Meadows, who's most likely going to bounce back, and you got Randy Arozarena, Brandon Lau. This offense is good. I think this offense is going to be better than last year. I'm really excited for this Rays team this year. I've been excited for a while. I cannot wait to watch the Rays tomorrow. I cannot wait for the Rays to prove people wrong. I am very excited about the Tampa Bay Rays this year. And on that note, I will see y'all later. Go Rays, and let's win the World Series.